Discover the incredible maid who said no to a millionaire CEO and transformed his life forever. Maria's hands trembled as she dusted the sleek glass table in the penthouse, each sweeping motion more of a burden than the last. She glanced out at the sprawling skyline of Manhattan, a world she could only inhabit as a ghost while keeping the lavish space immaculate for its brash occupant, Michael, the enigmatic billionaire. Every day, she scrubbed the remnants of other people's success, yet within her chest simmered a fire fueled by dreams of freedom for her younger brother back home. The weight of her family's sacrifices coiled tightly around her heart, squeezing her until she could hardly breathe. Today was different. Today, she knew she would cross an invisible line, a line drawn not by her but by her moral fiber. Michael's voice echoed through the penthouse, gruff and impatient as he barked orders at his team. He couldn't see the opulence that surrounded him, the expensive art pieces, the gleaming marble, because he was lost in a cycle of numbers and profit margins. Maria understood that once, long ago, he must have had dreams of his own, but watching him belittle those around him, she wondered if he even remembered what happiness felt like. She hesitated at the thought of turning away, of saying no, needing this job, the paycheck, and more importantly her brother's future. Looking over her shoulder, she glimpsed Michael's face contorted with frustration, blissfully ignorant of the lives he touched. The world thrummed with life just outside, and each pulse of her heart echoed her mounting resistance. He shouted for her, expecting her to obey as she always had. His entitlement gnawed at her insides, a bitter reminder of why she worked for him in the first place. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she stood there, her heart surged with conflicting emotions: fear, determination, and a flicker of hope. Would this finally be the moment when she took control of her life instead of letting it be dictated by a cold man shielded by glass? She faced him, resolve hardening with each second. She could almost hear her parents' voices in her head, urging her to stand tall. No, she managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. I want to do it. Silence. The room thickened with tension, his brow furrowing, surprise breaking through the mask of bravado. He looked at her, really looked, almost as if seeing the weary soul behind the apron for the first time. For one fleeting moment, Maria felt empowered, but as Michael's expression shifted to anger, that power seeped away, replaced by an urgent regret. Instantly, she felt both exhilarated and terrified, a lethal cocktail of vulnerability coursing through her. But as she stepped back, the decision crystallized. She was no longer invisible, she was someone who dared to defy him. As she fled the penthouse, her heart raced with the rush of freedom, mixed with anxiety over her uncertain future. Days turned into weeks, and the penthouse was tainted with her absence. Michael felt it, a hollow echo that reverberated through his lonely existence. He was a CEO, revered and feared, yet utterly disconnected from anyone who could challenge the apathy he'd cocooned himself in. Without Maria, the silence became deafening. Each reminder of her absence gnawed at him, pushing him to relive every decision he'd made that allowed this moment of confrontation to happen. Now, as he prepared to search for her, a mere maid who saw through the facade of his empire, he questioned his own soul. This journey wasn't just about finding her, it was about confronting a fortress built on loneliness. As the heaviness of that thought settled in, Maria pondered her own choices, caught between the empowerment of taking a stand and the uncertainty of stepping into the unknown. Would she let Michael back into her life? The deeper they fell into their respective internal battles, the more the question loomed large: could either of them truly change? And would that change bring them together or drive them further apart? Maria walked the gritty sidewalks of Manhattan, the ambient noise swirling around her like a living entity. Each step felt heavier than the last, but freedom pulsed vigorously within her. The boldness of saying no cascaded through her thoughts, igniting a newfound resilience that pushed her forward. She was reclaiming the parts of herself that she had relinquished at the foot of a billionaire's empire, yet she was also faced with the stark reality of her choices. No longer defined by servitude, she now grappled with who she wanted to become. Her last paycheck had kept her afloat temporarily, but she needed more than just survival mode. A half-eaten sandwich from a street vendor served as her only meal of the day, but it was a sacrifice she was willing to endure for her independence. She had no job, no safety net, and the fear of the unknown loomed before her, monstrous and intimidating. Yet, with each beat of her heart, she could feel the tremors of self-empowerment. Maria's mind raced as she contemplated her next steps. What skills did she have beyond cleaning? Scrubbing floors and polishing glass had maintained a building created by someone else's vision. It dawned on her suddenly, there were stories lingering in her spirit's strength stemming from her upbringing. Despite not having formal education, her mother's relentless spirit had taught her to dream bigger than their means. As she reached an unassuming neighborhood library, she squeezed through the glass doors, a hint of nostalgia mingling with purpose. Immersing herself in the stacks of books felt like breathing fresh air after years of suffocation. She started a quiet life of self-education, devouring every text on entrepreneurship, psychology, and personal finance she could find. Grit sharpened her mind, she discovered a knack for understanding systems and dreaming about applying that knowledge. Days slipped into weeks, and in those moments of enlightenment, Maria wrestled not only with the world unfolding before her but also her identity. A nagging voice whispered under the surface, was she simply running away? Were her thoughts of Michael merely a distraction from her own development? She envisioned him, a figure cloaked in power but roiling with isolation. The moments when they would share fleeting glances flooded back remnants of empathy in his demanding eyes. Strangely, the ghost of his presence began to morph, becoming less of an anchor and more of a lesson. Such intense scrutiny he'd placed on her could now be mirrored in her self-reflection. Confronting that side of herself, finding her voice, became crucial. One evening, while grappling with the ramifications of her decisions, her phone buzzed unceremoniously. A text from an unknown number lit up the screen. "I need to talk to you. It's urgent." Her heart dropped momentarily. There was a single name pulsing behind her thoughts, but she couldn't allow herself to cling to that possibility. The time had come for her to decide, would she reach out to confront her past or focus on her self-discovery? With renewed confidence, she planted her feet firmly on the ground, questioning whether her future was worth reshaping or if she could afford to look back at the shards of a life once lived. What did Michael truly want? The inquiry echoed in her mind as uncertainty spiraled. She needed to confront her resolve, to answer a more profound question: could the two of them rise together from the ashes of their vacated personas, or were they destined to continue their separate journeys, forever marked by that moment of reckoning? Days passed, and with each one, Maria sank deeper into her self-education. The library had become a sanctuary where the boundaries of possibility set by her past began to dissolve. The books transformed her outlook, they expanded her consciousness while eliminating the remnants of the servility she once accepted as her reality. She meticulously crafted a plan that involved reaching out to prospective employers, albeit hesitant at first. Confidence was a currency she was learning to embrace, but tangible action still felt daunting. Navigating job postings online became her nightly ritual. She tailored her resume, an amalgamation of years of work driven by others' dreams, into a narrative of her own aspirations. Describing her experience, she realized she could no longer see it as mere labor. It was a comprehensive education in managing spaces, understanding clients' needs, and demonstrating resilience under pressure. Each accomplishment was no longer hidden behind the shadow of Michael's empire but instead stood out as a testament to her capabilities. A week into her focused job search, she stumbled upon a small startup specializing in sustainable cleaning products. Intrigued, she read about their mission to revolutionize the industry while also fostering community empowerment. It echoed the values instilled in her from her mother, and she felt an inexplicably magnetic pull toward it. Maria crafted a personalized cover letter, weaving in her passion for sustainability, and outlined how her experience in high-pressure environments had equipped her with the skills necessary to thrive in such a setting. however, restlessness stirred within her when contemplating the implications of success. The thought of Michael flickered through her consciousness, memories capturing the man she once relied on for affirmation. Was she trying to mirror him, his success, his ambition? It felt less about that and more about creating her own path. She buried the narrative of their last interaction deep within her thoughts, shrugging off more doubts as gnawing insecurities. The day she hit send on her application felt monumental, yet the tranquility was transient. A question lingered: what if passing that threshold meant walking away from her connection with him forever? She recognized the deep-seated fear of reality, the notion that liberation might come at a cost. Transformational shifts were rarely comfortable. The phone buzzed one afternoon, slicing through her concentration. A notification from her email appeared, an interview invitation from the startup. A fusion of dread and excitement burgeoned within her. It was a step forward, yet it also required facing potential rejection. She hesitated for a moment, grasping the weight of the past as ghost. Maria took a deep breath, the scent of possibility filling her lungs. She knew avoidance was not an option, understanding how her past could inform her future was imperative. She began rehearsing for the interview, digging deep to fuse her accomplishments and lessons learned into a coherent narrative, one that wasn't just about cleaning, but about her vision for innovation and empowerment. As the days to the interview dwindled, she faced yet another tempest of emotions. The moment had arrived to confront the duality of who she was, an empowered woman learning to stand on her own while reflecting on the dichotomy of her existence with Michael. Resentment bubbled beneath the surface, contrasting with yearning for growth. Would confronting him be a distraction or a necessary closure? The weight of her impending interview combined with the uncertainty concerning Michael became unbearable. She resolved that the true test lay ahead. Embracing this duality might shape her completely. Both paths would entwine when the door opened. What if, just what if, reaching out to him could provide clarity amid the tumult of her past, shaping her newfound identity as much as her present steps? The choice hung heavily. Was pursuing closure part of her transformation, or an unnecessary complication? All she could do was brace herself. The next moments could decide which version of herself would emerge. The night before the interview, Maria sat at her kitchen table, the bright light flickering above creating shadows that danced on the walls. Her notes lay scattered before her, each page a testament to both her anxiety and her ambition. The outlines of potential questions and her crafted responses contrasted sharply with the undercurrent of doubt that coursed through her. The fear of rejection loomed heavily, but it was more than that. It was the fear of not measuring up, both to the expectations she had set for herself and to those she had felt from Michael. She shook her head as if to dispel the memories of his last triumphant words, "You've always needed me, Maria," echoing in her mind like a taunt. She steeled herself, focusing on the shimmer of her future. With every phrase she rehearsed, she reframed her narrative, reminding herself that she was not merely a reflection of someone else's dreams. Instead, she was a mosaic of her experiences, ready to showcase her individuality. At dawn, a cool breeze slipped through her window as she prepared for the interview. She dressed in a simple yet professional outfit that made her feel both confident and authentic. Each accessory carefully selected, she adorned herself not just to impress but to affirm her own sense of self-worth. The anxiety from the night before had been transformed into a fierce determination. Maria was ready to present her vision, not just for the job but for her life moving forward. As she walked into the startup's office an hour later, her heart raced, but she quelled it with the mantra she had repeated in her head: "I am enough." The open space was eclectic, filled with people engaged in animated discussions about their missions and ideals. It felt alive, vibrant, a stark contrast to the rigid, cold atmosphere of her past professional life. The interview began, and Maria seized the moment. She spoke passionately about her experiences, framing them around her understanding of both client needs and market growth. She illustrated her narrative with anecdotes that highlighted her resilience, her drive to innovate within challenging environments. It was freeing, not just the interview itself but the act of discussing her aspirations without the shadow of doubt hovering over her. Each question posed was an opportunity for empowerment, and she leaned into the discomfort, allowing herself to be vulnerable yet assertive. The interviewers responded with genuine interest, prompting deeper discussions that forced her to articulate her vision more precisely. She felt invigorated, as if for the first time, she was not just being evaluated but recognized. After the questions subsided, the atmosphere shifted. The lead interviewer leaned back, studying her with a look of contemplation. "What would you bring to this team that would disrupt our expectations?" He asked. That it was a question that penetrated deeper than she anticipated. Here lay all her insecurities. Would she mimic Michael's successes, or carve out a brand new identity? Each option collided within her thoughts, demanding resolution. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "I believe I can ignite change by integrating my past with innovative thinking," she declared, her voice steady. "I won't just do what's expected, I will question the norms and challenge the status quo." The room pulsed with anticipation. Had she revealed too much? Was her vision too bold? As the interview came to a close, Maria felt a twinge of exhilaration mixed with uncertainty. They thanked her for her time, yet the pause that followed as she turned to leave felt heavy, laden with the uncharted space between her past and her future. Stepping out into the bright afternoon sun, she allowed herself to savor a moment of relief, yet an unnerving realization settled within her: she still had to confront Michael. The unsettling knot in her stomach reminded her that this journey was only beginning. Would reaching out to him bring the closure she sought, or would it shatter the newfound determination she had fostered? She pulled out her phone. Heart racing, as she contemplated sending the message that could redefine everything. Maria stood on the sidewalk, the phone heavy in her hand as the weight of her next decision loomed larger than ever. She pressed her lips together, wrestling with the conflicting tides of anxiety and empowerment coursing through her. The choice to reach out to Michael felt like stepping onto a tightrope suspended above uncertainty. Behind her, the office's glass doors shimmered, a world of possibility waiting inside, yet her past still clung to her like a shadow. After a long moment, she forced herself to focus on the present. The conversation from her interview replayed in her mind, each word a vibrant brushstroke on her canvas of self-discovery. Maria had conveyed her vision, and they had listened not as remnants of someone else's ambitions, but as a professional in her own right. It was a powerful affirmation that had begun to redefine her understanding of worth, but the impending communication with Michael tugged at her, a reminder of an old narrative that threatened to unravel her gains. What if the confrontation exposed her vulnerabilities instead of the strength she had just begun to recognize? A flicker of doubt ignited, and she squeezed her eyes shut, taking one steadying breath. She could reclaim her power, but first she had to dismantle the lingering chains of dependency he had imposed. As if sensing the fork in her path, a thought crystallized in her mind: maybe confronting Michael was not just about closure but about reasserting her identity. She began to draft a message, tapping the screen with a deliberate cadence. "Can we talk?" The words hung ominously on her phone, yet they represented more than a summons. They symbolized a proactive step toward her evolution. With a shaky finger, she hit send, and for a moment, she felt as though she had released a tether binding her to the past. The rapid heartbeat underscored the exhilaration of her decision. Was it liberation or recklessness? Maria recalled the interview. "I will question the norms and challenge the status quo," she had declared. And here she was, poised to challenge one of the most ingrained norms in her life. The day unfolded, each hour tainted with anticipation for his response. Maria diverted her attention by diving into projects she had held off on while she prepared for the interview. Creating and strategizing felt invigorating, weaving her personal ambition with professional aspirations. The office environment buzzed around her, a stark reminder that she had actively chosen to be a part of this innovative space, a decision that echoed her inner resolve. Eventually, her phone chirped, jolting her from concentration. She hesitated, staring at the bright screen illuminating Michael's name. With a nervous flutter in her stomach, she opened the message. "Sure, when do you want to meet?" A rush of adrenaline sent her heart racing. The few words could mean so much: a doorway to confrontation and clarity, or an encounter that could threaten the new foundations she had just begun to build. A conflict surged within her. Part of her wanted to delay, to bask in the empowerment she felt at the interview for just a little longer. The other part knew she needed to confront her past head-on. Taking a deep breath, Maria typed again, "How about tomorrow?" She pressed send, then set her phone down firmly on her desk, as if to underscore her finality. The decision had been made, there was no turning back now. The countdown to their meeting began in earnest as doubts and hopes swirled within her. It was time to explore the intricate labyrinth of her past, to dissect the dependency that had once defined her and unveil the empowered woman she was becoming. But as the hours passed, a nagging thought crept in: what if she wasn't ready to face him? What if the confrontation revealed more about her than the tenacity she had developed? Reflecting on her journey ahead, she knew the meeting could challenge the validity of her newfound identity. The time had come to face what she had evaded for far too long, and deep down, she wondered, was she prepared to confront the most formidable manifestation of her past? The night before the meeting weighed heavily on Maria's mind, an amalgamation of excitement and dread swirling in her thoughts. As she stared at the ceiling of her small apartment, the shadows from the streetlights outside danced across the room, reflecting the inner turmoil she faced. A series of what-ifs cascaded through her consciousness, each one a variant of fear and doubt. What if she stumbled over her words? What if he remained unchanged, rendering her bravado futile? No. This time, she steadied herself against the familiar wave of anxiety. She needed to acknowledge that fear was merely a response, not a determinant of her actions. Hadn't she spent the last few months cultivating a new perspective on her life, fueling her ambition to advance in her career? This moment could be a threshold, not just a conversation with Michael, but a critical pivot point in her journey. To ease her racing heart, Maria consulted her notes from the interview, pages filled with insights and clarity she'd gained about herself. Her fingers traced the powerful phrases, each word a reminder of the professional she had uncovered. Challenge the status quo. Those words resonated. This was her chance to challenge her own narrative and reclaim her power. As the sun broke the horizon, the world outside transformed into vibrant hues of orange and pink. Maria embraced the beauty of a new day and prepared herself mentally. Her professional attire felt different. It was no longer a uniform to mask her insecurities but rather a reflection of her aspirations. She dressed with purpose, articulating silently to herself that she was not merely going to confront Michael, she was going to assert who she had become. When she entered the coffee shop where they agreed to meet, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee washed over her, invigorating her spirit. She arrived early, grounding herself in a corner seat, where the chatter of other patrons buzzed around her like a rhythm. Stillness intertwined with determination, she reviewed her approach as if she were preparing for a presentation. She envisioned opening her dialogue, making space for honesty while navigating the conversation, and ensuring it didn't spiral into old patterns of defensiveness. As the clock ticked closer to their scheduled time, her heart thrummed with anticipation. She scanned the entrance, and there was Michael, his presence still hauntingly familiar yet simultaneously distant. He smiled upon seeing her, but Maria felt an undercurrent of apprehension in his demeanor. There was the man who had once restrained her, but today, she held the potential to redefine their interaction. "Maria, it's good to see you." His voice cascaded with a mix of warmth and uncertainty. "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, her tone firm yet inviting. She watched him closely, noting changes in his expression as she fought against the urge to revert to the old, vulnerable Maria. As they settled into the conversation, it became clear that Michael held an expectation for reconciliation. The old script was alive in his movements and words, just waiting to play out. But she had no intention of letting it dictate the tone today. This wasn't just a reunion, it was a negotiation of terms for her ongoing narrative. "Michael," she began, her voice steady, "I need to express something fundamental about our past and how it shaped me. I understand now that I lost myself in that relationship. I allowed decisions to be dictated by fear and dependency." She saw the surprise flicker across his face. The moment was electric. She was no longer waiting for validation or permission. This was about reclaiming her narrative, reviewing not only their past but her right to dictate the future. She would confront the uncertainties while shedding the limitations that had once held her back. Yet as the conversation progressed, Maria found herself grappling with deeper emotions, the remnants of affection intertwined with resentment. Every word she spoke unveiled layers of her experience, revealing cracks in Michael's facade as well. But the real confrontation was not merely about exposing him, it was about her inner resilience, a test of her newfound truth. Reflection and adrenaline surged within her as she realized this wasn't just confronting him but an awakening to herself. Yet, the dialogue could shift at any moment. Would she be able to maintain her newfound perspective amidst the evolving dynamics? As their conversation peaked, a sudden realization struck Maria: powerful transformations often prompt similar vulnerability in others. What revelation awaited her today? And perhaps more importantly, what truths about herself might she uncover? But as they continued to speak, an unexpected silence fell between them, laden with tension and possibility, a pause that hinted at the profound discoveries just below the surface, waiting to emerge. Maria felt the weight of the silence envelop the table, an invisible barrier that both separated and connected them. She could sense that this was a watershed moment. Both of them stood on the brink of self-discovery. The flickering candle between them illuminated the shifting shadows of their past, and in that wan light, she saw something in Michael's eyes: a flicker of confusion, perhaps a touch of regret. "Do you even realize how much you hurt me?" Michael broke the silence, his voice carrying an edge of vulnerability that startled her. She felt a mix of emotions surge within her, anger battling with sympathy, but she quickly reminded herself that this was not the conversation she had come to have. It wasn't about laying blame, it was about healing. "Michael," she said, her tone measured, "I didn't come here to rehash the pain. This is about understanding who we are now." His posture shifted slightly, as if she had created an opening for him to step back from his defensiveness. She could feel that he wasn't used to being challenged. In their past, his needs had often dictated the terms of their relationship. But today was different. Today, she was not beneath him, they were equals exploring a shared history. As Maria spoke, she discovered the power of her voice. With each word, she peeled back layers, digging deeper into both her own psyche and Michael's. "I thought I needed your approval to feel worthy," she continued, her voice stronger than ever. "But I no longer live in that shadow. What matters now is authenticity, honesty, and self-respect." Michael's expression showed signs of recognition. She noted the slight nod, the almost imperceptible shift in his gaze. Maybe he was beginning to understand that their dialogue did not have to default to defensiveness if she refused to play her old role. "I've grown, Michael," she declared, intent on making her point clear, "and I hope you can embrace that too." Yet, deep inside, a question persisted: could he ever truly change? As they discussed their memories, she fought back her skepticism, not wanting to allow it to poison the moment. It was essential that she remained anchored to her resolve, visualizing herself as a professional in a world where her voice mattered. "You were always the one who set the tone, who took control," he admitted quietly, the admission momentarily disarming her. "I thought that was what you wanted." "I thought it was too," she replied, wrestling with the remnants of their old dynamic. "But that was never about what I wanted, it was about what I allowed you to decide for me. Today, I want us to redefine our narrative together. We're not who we were." The previous warmth in his demeanor flickered. It almost felt as though a storm was brewing within him, but she persisted. She refused to retract her words or retreat into uncertainty. Growing focus and clarity emerged amidst the swirling tension. A sudden thought jolted her: had she unwittingly led him to a realization about his own behaviors? She sensed his turmoil, even as he struggled to grapple with old insecurities. Perhaps he was coming to understand the impact of his actions not just on her but on himself. But just as their conversation seemed to forge a tentative path toward understanding, a familiar tension crept back in. The table between them felt charged, as if their unspoken truths hung suspended, lingering in the air. "What do you really want from me?" he asked suddenly, his tone shifting again, eliciting a new wave of tension. It was a direct challenge, an opportunity to emphasize her desperation for closure or validation. The moment was charged with an intensity that felt almost sacred. Would she choose resolution, seeking a confession of guilt, or embrace her own journey toward emancipation? She was teetering on the edge of a precipice, her decision carrying the weight of significance. What became evident was a choice before her: would she define this moment by the demands of the past or reclaim it for herself? The thought hung thick in the air, drawing her closer to the precipice of realization. Suddenly, Maria felt an invigorating rush reverberate through her veins. The time had come not just to face the remnants of their connection, but to seize the opportunity of transformation. What if this was the moment she flipped the script entirely? Would she dare to confront Michael not just for herself, but for him as well? Could this conversation revolutionize not only her path but his, too? Her heart raced as the vision of her potential unfolded before her, intertwining with the possibilities for both of them. But the question lingered in the air, heavy with expectation. Was she ready to face the truth that had the power to redefine their lives forever? The tension between them crystallized, and Maria sensed the gravity of her own emotional landscape shifting. She could feel the weight of the past pressing down upon her like a heavy shroud, but her resolve to redefine this moment thrummed like an electric current in her veins. "I want you to see me clearly, Michael," she began, her voice steady and unwavering. "I'm not the same person you used to know. I'm no longer seeking validation through your lens." It was a clarion call, both an assertion of her agency and a challenge to him, a plea to meet her in this new reality. His features softened, a conflict brewing behind his eyes. "But if you don't need me, then what is left for us? What does this mean?" His response was tinged with something that felt almost like fear, which intrigued her. "What it means is that we can acknowledge our past without it binding us," she replied, uncovering a layer of self-awareness she hadn't realized was there until now. There was power in her words, a transformative energy that surged from the depths of her resolve. "We can reshape our narrative not as enemies, but as two people who have learned hard lessons." The flickering candle cast long shadows around them, a reminder of the ghosts they both carried. Yet, for the first time, Maria saw that the shadows didn't hold the power. It was the light they both searched for. Michael leaned back, his body language shifting into a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "So you're saying we can have an honest conversation without the blame? That we can just be?" "Yes," she affirmed, encouraged by a newfound clarity. "We can start by being honest about how we feel without the need to dissect every misstep. It's about growth now, not guilt." She felt the energy shift subtly in the air, as if her words had planted the seeds of change. But she needed to tread carefully. "I want you to explore your own growth, Michael," she continued, feeling a wave of empathy washing over her. "You've been facing so many of your own darker moments, and it's time to confront them not for me, but for yourself." As she spoke, she sensed an evolution happening within her, an unfolding of parts of herself long silenced. Maria had been molded by insecurity, often relegating herself to the periphery. But here, in this vulnerable space, she began to understand the importance of setting intentions. "I don't expect you to change overnight," she admitted, allowing her vulnerability to flow freely. "But what if we both commit to this? To learning and understanding who we are beyond the confines of our past. It can redefine everything." He appeared to mull over her words, the silence thickening as they hung in the air between them. Would he accept this challenge? Could he acknowledge that his own journey was intertwined with hers without the weight of their history suffocating them? "I don't know if I'm ready," he finally confessed, his voice softer, laced with apprehension. "But I want to try." Her heart raced with the possibilities. This was the moment she had imagined, not merely an unraveling conversation but an open door toward an uncharted landscape. Yet, an unsettling thought tugged at her mind: would his efforts be genuine or merely a response to her boldness? Maria realized that the answers wouldn't emerge easily. There would be obstacles and learning curves, paths that might diverge before converging again. However, she was ready to navigate through uncertainty. "What matters is that we step forward together or apart, if that's how it's meant to be," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Transformation starts with the willingness to confront yourself. I'm here to face my own reflections, and I hope you can find the strength to do the same." And just as the evening air thickened with shared possibilities, a new thought struck her, a challenge within herself. What if the next step in her own evolution didn't just lie within this conversation but extended beyond? Was she ready to take the risks inherent in forging a new path? The light of the candle flickered ominously as if acknowledging the gravity of what was to come. As Michael's gaze met hers, swirling uncertainties mingled with hope, igniting a new fire within her that urged her forward. Maria felt alive, electrified by the possibility that she could indeed be the catalyst for change not just in his life, but in her own. What would these leaps of faith uncover, both now and in the future? The road ahead loomed vast with both promise and peril, and her heart pounded at the realization, there was so much more to confront within him and especially within herself. Would she dare embark on this journey of profound self-discovery? The flicker of hope was just the beginning. The true test of her resilience lay in navigating the uncharted waters ahead. The next move was hers, and she could feel the gravity of that realization pushing her to leap. With a newfound determination coursing through her, Maria found herself contemplating all the changes she could implement in her life beyond this encounter. What if she truly reclaimed her narrative? The possibilities pulsed like the flickering candlelight, and she felt their pull urging her forward. As the evening waned, Maria excused herself from Michael's presence. She needed time to process. Each step away from him felt heavy with both relief and trepidation. She paused on the porch, taking in the cool night air, grounding herself in the moment. The shadows creeping up the walls of their past didn't have to dictate her future. She rummaged through her thoughts, considering the unfulfilled ambitions that lay dormant within her. The world of design she had once dreamed of was now choking under layers of self-doubt and uncertainty. How could she weave her aspirations back into reality? Stepping away from Michael also meant stepping out of the murky waters of self-doubt, and yet those very waters remained so familiar, they beckoned her to drown in complacency. No more. She wouldn't allow insecurity to silence her potential. The question remained, could she build a life where she no longer sought validation outside herself? Her day job always felt stifling, a mere backdrop against which her true passion design lay buried. What would it take to allow her creativity to blossom once more? Her mind raced with possibilities. She could create, experiment, and express herself without leaning on anyone for approval. The idea of putting her work out into the world sent a thrill down her spine, but with it came a wave of anxiety. What if she failed? What if she was ridiculed for her efforts? But then again, what if she succeeded? What if her designs resonated with others? In contemplation, vivid images filled her mind, bright patterns, elegant spaces, immersive experiences. Each image invited her to stop hesitating and instead embrace exploration. Maria recognized that movement began with small steps. What if she devoted just a few hours each week to sketching her new design concepts? A commitment to her own growth. The internal battle was palpable. The fear of stepping out was met with the exhilaration of potential. And then it struck her, it wasn't simply the fear of failure that locked her in place, it was the fear of success that scared her just as much. What if she actually became the designer she always dreamed of, but could no longer find comfort in the familiar shadows? Determined, Maria reached for her phone and opened a blank note application. She began to jot down ideas, letting her creativity flow onto the screen with unrestrained enthusiasm. Each word, each design, felt like a promise to herself, a contract of growth built on her own terms. As the excitement of rekindled creativity surged within her, she confidently resolved that she would share her work with friends, inviting them to engage with her designs constructively. Their opinions wouldn't deter her, rather, they would push her forward, forcing her to confront any vulnerability. Just as she was gaining momentum, her phone buzzed to life. A message from Michael illuminated the screen. Can we talk again? I have things I want to explore too. This was his attempt to latch on to the possibility of their new foundation. Maria's stomach churned at the thought of engaging again. Would this conversation become another instance of unraveling and exploration of vulnerability, or yet another retreat into old patterns? What part of her she had just dared to embrace would he pull away, or would they find strength in collaboration? She set her phone down, intensely aware that this wasn't simply about her own development anymore. It was a crossroads, where her goals intertwined with his evolution. The urgency of the moment pressed down, summoning her to make a decision. Would she facilitate this collaboration, or would her fears hold her back? the clock ticked audibly, echoing the mounting tension of what lay ahead. Whatever course she chose, one unequivocal truth remained: the next move could redefine everything for both of them. What awaited would be a shared journey or a stark reminder that dependency could shatter any foundation they built. A deep breath filled her lungs as she opened her note app again, crafting a response to Michael, wrestling with her own burgeoning desires while contemplating their intertwined futures. Would she be ready to explore the intersection of their growth? The stakes had never been higher, and her next choice loomed large in the darkness cast by uncertainty. The day of reckoning finally arrived as Maria stood on the cusp of her own transformation. She had spent weeks channeling her energy into her new passion for design and had begun drafting ideas that wove together her past experiences with sustainable practices. Her heart raced as she prepared to meet Michael once more, but today was different. She was no longer the timid woman without a voice. Today, she was a creator, an innovator, and a woman reclaiming her narrative. Walking into the cafe, everything felt vibrant and alive, clear signs that the previous shadows in her life were dissipating. She sat down and took a deep breath, reminding herself that she was not here to seek validation but to explore the reality of who they had both become. Michael entered and greeted her with a tentative smile, still unmistakably handsome but now marked by traces of uncertainty. "Maria, it's good to see you again," he said, his voice carrying a hint of the warmth she once thought defined him. "Thanks for reaching out, Michael," her reply echoed with newfound confidence. "I think we should talk about what we envision moving forward." As they began to talk, Maria felt the weight of the past lift slightly. No longer tethered to fear, she navigated the conversation with clarity and intention. She expressed her excitement about her design projects, demonstrating a tangible connection to her aspirations. "I want to create spaces that serve people, utilizing sustainable practices," she articulated, her eyes flashing with passion. "I finally believe in my vision." Michael listened intently, brows furrowing in contemplation. "I've been thinking a lot about my role as a leader," he admitted. "I realize I've let my success blind me from being present. Seeing you like this, it's a wake-up call for me." In that moment, Maria witnessed the flicker of true vulnerability in him. It mirrored her own awakening. Might this change be what they needed, not just in their individual pursuits but as a newly formed connection? "I think we both need to evolve," she suggested, her voice gaining strength. "I don't want our past to dictate our futures. We can be a support system for each other if we're willing to redefine what that looks like." As the conversation flowed, paths of budding growth illuminated their previously tangled history. Michael shared his struggles in navigating the corporate world while fostering meaningful relationships. Maria spoke openly about her desire to shift from servitude to empowerment. They delved deeper, unearthing layers of understanding that had long been buried beneath societal expectations. Heavy with reflection but lightened by the prospect of partnership, Maria was no longer afraid. Each vulnerable admission fortified her conviction: she was forging a new identity and an invaluable connection based on mutual growth. By the end of their meeting, she felt liberated, absolving the burdens that once straitjacketed her spirit. "Let us put our plans into action," she proposed, excitement coursing through her veins. "Let us collaborate on sustainable initiatives that empower communities while showcasing innovative design solutions." Michael's expression brightened. "I'd like that. This could be a fresh start," he agreed, genuine enthusiasm radiating from him. Maria realized she had not only transformed herself but also ignited a spark of change in him. She no longer sought approval, she was a visionary, ready to pioneer initiatives that blurred the lines of their former roles. With urgency propelling her forward, they solidified their collaboration with a promise to meet weekly, determined to manifest their visions into reality. As they parted ways, a profound accountability enveloped her heart. Life had shifted, both barriers and possibilities stretched ahead like an unexplored horizon. The journey had just begun, satisfaction seated deep within her as she realized that she had accomplished not only the independent pursuit of her creativity but also an evolved relationship that held the potential to inspire both of them. Today marked the true beginning of her journey to self-fulfillment, a path anchored in courage, driven by authenticity, and shaped by boundless potential, she walked away from the cafe with solid confidence, ready to embrace the challenges and triumphs that lay ahead. This was her moment. Personal achievement was no longer an abstract dream but her lived reality. Now is the time for you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment below with your thoughts and theories about this incredible conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering journey of transformation.